Good morning and welcome to the trade setup right here on BloombergQuint Live. I'm Niraj Shah, and it's a day of trade which has some positive cues, but I think the advent of the worrying earnings season, which is the April, May, June season, because we are into the month of July. Happy July to all of you. But first, some updates and what's happening around the world. So, Nasdaq had its biggest quarterly gain since 2001, and I mean when we wrapped yesterday, I think it's pretty stellar what some of the world indices have done by and large, right? So quarter that was, I think that sums it up, right? The best gains since 2001 for Nasdaq. For a bunch of European indices, the best gains, quarterly gains since 2015, and for the Indian markets, the best quarterly gains since 2008. It dates back all the way there. So the world looked okay in the quarter gone by, and definitely in the day of trade yesterday. The question is, what happens next? Now, what happens today could be crucial as well. It's the start of the first day of the month, and it's important to look at what the US markets did yesterday, what the Asian markets did yesterday, and what the SGX Nifty is doing right now. So first, the US markets, not a blockbuster move, but 1.5% is something that you take with both hands. So the Dow had a fabulous move. Nasdaq and the S&P as well following suit. So not a bad day. The Dow and the S&P actually did a bit better, I think, than what the Nasdaq did. So that is part one. Now, part two is what the rest of the world is up to today, and what are the cues for the start of the trading day today for our markets. So Asian screen should come up on your screen. The peripheral market started off way early and did okay. Kospi, the one that is on right now, has, I mean, its start is okay. There's nothing too dramatic about it. Let me put it that way. And that's why I think the SGX Nifty is kind of uh, taking some cues from what the US markets did, but also paying heed to the kind of moves that we've had thus far and what the Asian screen is doing as well in the session today. So, which is why it's kind of muted, flattish, about 40 odd points in the red as the current standing stands. Uh, it's ho-hum, really. I mean, I don't think you should be too concerned with this 0.5% downtick. A lot of people would ask that the US markets did so well, so why are we not? But I think that's okay, par for the course as well. It's very difficult to quite figure out a one-to-one correlation these days. Now, the trade setup for the day today, I think one of the reasons why the SGX Nifty might also not be doing too well is because the MSCI has deferred this inclusion of the Indian indices, and that review has been pushed behind. So that could be a factor as well. What stays in focus today, I think it's autos. Frankly, what the indices can do is anybody's guess, right? We will probably start off lower, yes, because of the MSCI issue and otherwise, but autos remains the firm focus. I think the monthly auto sales will dominate the session. And to my mind, tractors, two-wheelers, and Maruti Suzuki, these are the three things that all of us have to keep an eye out for. If the numbers don't turn out to be as much as what some of the three brokerages estimated, and if you want to know what the brokerage estimates were, go onto our website and try and read. It's a culmination of the 3 or 4 brokerages that do this roundup of what the monthly sales could be. If the numbers are not up to the mark, then we might well see a bit of a pullback as well. But selectively, I think if there is a positive surprise, then expect some buying. We saw that in the month of May with what happened with tractor names, a couple of two-wheeler names, and the way they bounced back. Though it could be very different for the month of June. I mean, the numbers for the month of June, the impact will obviously come in starting today. Do watch out. I think Bajaj Auto and Maruti kick-started at about 9:30. So that's where you got to keep in mind. Just keep in mind one thing, viewers. Mahindra and Mahindra tractor sales, remember, for the month of May, were better than the auto sales numbers of Maruti Suzuki and Hyundai as well. So that's the strength in the tractor space. But the stocks, and what are the ones that I'm focusing on today? I think the stock of the day, to my mind, is JSPL. Literally, it could well turn out to be the stock of the day. The Mauritius arm has decided to divest its entire stake in its Oman asset. The EV of the deal is over $1 billion. So the sound bites look interesting. The pickle is that it is being bought over by Templar Investments, and Templar Investments is a part of the promoter group of JSPL. So let's wait and watch. It's subject to approvals from some of the other investors like IOC, etc. So let's wait and watch, and we'll talk to the management at 10 a.m. today. So you might want to tune in for that as well. But keep in mind, this one looks interesting. Let's wait and watch how it shapes up. I think brokerages, Morgan Stanley came out with a note. They have maintained the neutral stance, if I'm not wrong. So no great shakes out there, but yeah, it's an incremental positive according to them as well, if I'm not wrong. So that's the one thing that you have to keep in mind. Other stocks to watch, ONGC, the numbers came out, revenues were down about 9.5%. There's a net loss versus a net profit. I mean, there are estimates as well, but I'm just ignoring the estimates completely because you don't know what factors were taken in. But the reported numbers, margins were at 40% versus 51.9%. So quite a bit of a pullback there. Most companies have shown cost control measures and better margins. This one hasn't. Not the best of numbers. There's an impairment loss of 4,900 crores. I mean, some of the impairments, we've seen what's happened to the stock price of Vedanta with the impairment, stock price of Bharat Forge. This one too looks a bit precarious. So I wouldn't be surprised if ONGC has a bit of a negative reaction today. Not that crude has done too much, and therefore don't quite know. Um, this is much an initial guess, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if ONGC has a negative tick in the sector. Wells, Vedanta, Vedanta. Vedanta is sought to increase a planned $2.5 billion loan by another 250 million to help it advance a decision to delist. They seem to be serious about this. Remember, viewers, I keep on bringing this simply because I want to tell all of you that the price movement in Vedanta, from a trader or from a minority investor's perspective, would depend on what the reverse book building process throws up. Therefore, you have to keep that in mind. Uh, until that is figured out, you never know what the stock price of Vedanta would do. So, but the delisting price or the base price has no basis really for what Vedanta will do going ahead. Keep that in mind. Last but not the least, Vodafone Idea. The numbers came out at I think 12.20, if I'm not wrong. Revenues were up about 6%. EBITDA was up about 28% for Vedanta. There's a net loss of 11,000 crores. That's the problem. And ARPUs were up about 11%. Now, there are two positives out here. One, that the EBITDA is higher than what was estimated. And the ARPUs, 121, marginally better than the 110 mark that most people had. But the problem with Vedanta, viewers, I'll tell you, Vodafone, excuse me. The problem with Vodafone, I'll tell you. The revenues, I've noted down these points. The revenues grew only 6% despite a 30% tariff hike. So that doesn't augur too well. It's the slowest growth in the industry. The subscriber losses offset the benefits of the tariff hike as well. They continue to lose subscribers, even though they've said that the churn is only 3%, but they continue to lose subscribers. EBITDA is aided by a one-off of 400 crores and core EBITDA is still negative. So you would argue that there are a lot of negatives. The bulls would argue that all of these negatives are known, and which is why the stock is at the prices that it is. My guess is that it could start off marginally lower, but at lower levels, you consistently saw Vodafone being accumulated by smart money, reportedly smart money. So let's wait and watch what Vodafone does in the session today. It would be interesting to see how this one shapes up in trade. So keep that at the back of your mind. Lastly, viewers, I just want to leave you with one view on the stock of the day as well, because I just got the Morgan Stanley note. As I said, they are saying that they believe that the transaction to divest assets is in line with the shared strategy. It's a value accretion of 7 to 10% to market cap from this transaction. And therefore, I reiterate my point that JSPL would well be the stock of the day today. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Trade Setup.